Howdy, friends. Today we're going to start our first grow journal. I started some jalapenos already inside, and today we are going to plant some tomatoes, some yellow peppers, and some medical marijuana. Now, in Oklahoma, with medical marijuana, you can grow up to 6 plants with just the patient card. Now, you can go get a grower's license. I don't know much about those. And then also to like make treats and stuff for dispensaries or concentrates or just even flour, you have to have a processing license in Oklahoma. And everything's tracked here from seed to sale. So with us growing it at home, obviously we don't have to do that. We just have to make sure we stay within our 6 plant limit. You can have, I think, up to 12 seedlings at a time, but only 6 mature plants. So we're going to do 5 seeds today and just see what we end up with. But so far we have these 4 jalapenos right here that you see, and they are doing it okay, but I had 5 and my dog ate one. So yeah. So anyway, I've got this right here, Jiffy Natural and Organic Seed Starting Mix, and I bought that at Walmart. So I'm gonna go get some soil too. I don't have any for this year, and what I'll do is I'll get enough for all my plants that I plan on planting this year all at once and just be done, and then next year I'll go get more and so forth. But for now, we're just going to start with the seed starting mix until we need the actual soil. These 4 jalapenos are going in 5-gallon buckets that we drill holes in to make like a giant flower pot pretty much. And so we just take a drill and drill holes into the bottom of them so that the water can get out. Put some pebbles in the bottom of them, and then put the dirt on top, and of course transplant the plant in there. And that's where they'll stay for the whole summer. That's just like how my husband likes to do his jalapenos, and it keeps them close to the door where he can bring them in if he has to. In Oklahoma, we don't really have to worry about it after the last frost, but sometimes, like with me, I start his jalapenos real early, and so they might need transplanted into the 5-gallon buckets before the last frost, and therefore we can bring them in and out. So what I do is I have this Jiffy greenhouse, and the ones that start in this we'll put in the Jiffy greenhouse, and then once they get to this size, we will transplant them into this size of the Jiffy cup. See, it says, I write jalapeno on it just so we know what they all are. And then after they get too big for these little ones, we'll put them in this sized one. And this is just that. And then, of course, we have Super Thrive plant food, and it comes with this, and you just mix a gallon of water per packet. It comes with 1 trowel size packet. The Jiffy greenhouse does. Now we have the lid here too. Let's see if I can grab it from where I'm at. And there's the lid, and it just goes on top. Of course, we don't leave it on there with the jalapenos in there, but sorry about the mess, guys. I'm in my room where I do all this kind of stuff. Craft room. It's our extra bedroom, and it's just my room, and maybe one day we will organize it. But for now, we just get dirt all over the place anyway, so we're going to start with the seeds down here. We'll put them in the greenhouse, let them go, let them try to grow. We're not putting anything outside today. The high is like 56 degrees. It's like 38 degrees outside right now. So, yeah, they would not be happy about that. And then we're going to transplant one of these, the biggest one, so probably this one, into this, because that's the last big one this size I have. And I'm going to get more of these and some soil. And when I get more of these and some soil, I'm going to transplant all these into this size. And then after this size, they won't go in any more of these biodegradable Jiffy pots. They'll go straight into either the ground or the 5-gallon bucket. These 4 will go in the 5-gallon bucket. Everything else I plant goes in the ground. And I grow everything outside. After they have what they call the last frost, and after the last frost in Oklahoma, you're pretty much good for any vegetable. So that's when I plant them in the actual ground. But like carrots, beets, root type vegetables, you can actually plant a little bit before the first frost, I think, because you plant them deep enough that it won't matter anyway. And then they also take longer to come up. These yellow peppers back here, right there, that I planted, they have not come up at all, and they have been planted back there for like 3 weeks now. So I don't think it's quite warm enough for them yet. And yes, I did have the Jiffy greenhouse lid on them for like 2 weeks. So I just don't think they quite got warm enough yet. So we're going to replant a row of those and try again with those. And we're going to do tomatoes and medical marijuana. So let's go ahead and get started with we're going to go ahead and put soil in this. And then I'm going to get another one and just kind of tear it off so we only have 3 rows instead of 4. And the Jiffy greenhouse actually comes with these spikes right here, and you can write on them. You can write whatever you want on them and stick them down in one of the rows, so that way you know that whole row's full of jalapeno or full of pepper, and it just sticks right in there, and then you can reuse it. You can flip it over to the other side and write something else and use it again. And see, I use it for the whole row, but I guess if you only planted one thing, you could just put them in each individual one. But it only actually comes with 6 of those, so I guess you could say it comes with 12 because you can flip them over and reuse them. And I'm sure if you use like some sort of washable marker or something, you could use them even more than that. But I just use Sharpie for everything, and yeah. So let's go ahead and get started on getting these seeds planted and get their greenhouse lid on them. I'll show you where I put them right outside the window so that they can get the sunlight. And then of course I have heat in my house, so it stays the right temperature where they can grow and they can still get sunlight. So they're not getting the wrong amount of sunlight yet because it's completely through the window. I don't ever turn the light on or off. And here it stays off all the time. So obviously I turn it off and leave it off, but it doesn't come on when my plants are trying to grow inside. After they get moved outside, I turn the light on and off at night all the time. So I just know that with the marijuana plants, they're sensitive. I don't know so much about the vegetables, but definitely the marijuana plants are sensitive about that. And here's another thing is with marijuana, it's a weed. That's why we call it weed. And therefore, I mean, it can really grow about under any condition. I've seen YouTube videos where they have thrown a seed out in the desert and it grew. Obviously it was skanky, but That's not the point. It still grew. And then I've seen them experiment with like how long can a marijuana plant live on its own out in like the woods, not necessarily the forest, but out in the woods. And like as long as it's in a place where it gets sunlight, they pretty much can grow on their own. So anything that you do extra is just making that plant that much more better. So if you add nutrients, if you grow inside and control every aspect of their light, their environment, their airflow, all of that, you can come up with some pretty awesome things these days. But I don't necessarily have time or the attention span for something like that. So I just use the sun and grow it. I am using Super Thrive this year for the first time. After their seedlings, I won't use anything because I'm going to consume every plant that I grow. But the seedling stage, by the time we consume these plants, those nutrients will be used up by the plant, and we won't have to do any flushing or any sort of thing like that. I don't use pesticides. Grasshoppers are a pain in my butt. So if you have natural, organic ways of keeping the grasshoppers off, I've thought about a net, but I don't want to hinder the growth of any of my plants. So I'm not quite sure how that would work, but that's my biggest problem right now is, yeah, grasshoppers. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and dump the dirt in here, and then we're going to get one more row of these. And see, I'm just dumping it in there about half full, maybe 3/4, but definitely not all the way. See, and this is me making a mess like always. Just make sure all the dirt kind of gets, and if you have like a clump like this, I just grab it and you can, that happens when it gets wet, or like if it was outside and morning dew got in somehow or something, it clumps up like that. And sometimes it just comes like that. And see, I just break the clumps up. If they're not too big, it's not that big of a deal. It's like that. That's not too big of a deal. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just kind of make sure these have plenty. Because when you water this stuff, it has like this, almost like this wax effect where it repels the water at first. But the longer it sits with the water on it, the, I guess, easier it soaks it up, I guess is what you could say. So once we water this, it's probably going to sit on top for just a second, and we'll let it soak in, and I'll let you watch, and it'll take just a second, but it'll eventually soak in, and then we'll put the seed on top of that. Just that way we know that all the dirt was at least a little bit wet. And you don't want to like flood it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to take this spring water bottle I have, and I'm going to take this Super Thrive that I have made up. I'm going to kind of just stir it up a little bit, and we're going to pour it into here. This just kind of gives me more control when I'm pouring the water into the little tiny spots. And this is Super Thrive, so it does have like a fertilizer type stuff in it. It was like a white powder, and I dumped it in there and then mixed a gallon of water with it. And I actually just used tap water, which probably wasn't my best idea because of all the chlorine and chemicals and stuff in it. But so now I'm just going to put like a dab of water on each. Just, I want to make sure that it soaks it up, and see how it just kind of like floats as I put it on there. And then as we go, by the time I get to the end, it'll probably have started soaking up those first ones. So it does take just a second sometimes, and it depends how like mixed up the dirt is too. Like if the water can get down in there, it helps a little bit, but not really. It's just kind of like gotta soak it up, I guess. Okay, and now here we're back at the beginning. We'll just kind of watch it. See if I can get a good view. There it just kind of sits. It's hard to really tell that it's sitting on top, but if you move it around, it's kind of like a mudslide. And you can kind of bounce it and stuff to kind of get it to start soaking up water. You can use one of these to poke it. That helps. Just kind of gets the water down in there, and then it has no choice but to soak it up. Right? So now see, there's one that's soaked up versus one not soaked up. And it just looks like mud, really. Now eventually it'll actually soak it into the dirt. It's starting to now, this one is. And it won't look so soupy. It'll look like, there we go, kind of like peat moss. So I'm just going to kind of stir all of them up, and then we'll just kind of hurry this up a little more. Normally, if I wasn't trying to do like my first video ever, I would just walk away and come back and they would be soaked up, I guess. But I guess it's a good thing they put these labels in here, so I have something to kind of stir it up with, get it going. And now with this way, what I do is I'll put the seed down in, and then we'll cover it up with some more dry dirt. And then we'll just let it be, and we'll water it again tomorrow. We won't water the top of the dirt, because this should keep, we want the seed a little bit damp, but we don't want it, like I said, flooded, because then it'll just rot instead of grow, or germinate, I guess you would call it. Almost done here. 2 more. Just kind of mixing them up here still, if you were wondering. Now, once I get used to doing this, I might do some live, and you guys can kind of give me tips and tricks and stuff, and we can include them in. And I mean, if you want me to try something that other people have, like, I don't know, we can do conspiracy theories, like, if you want, like it, like when people say you can't water them in direct sunlight or they will burn up and die. We can do that. We can try it. We'll see. I mean, what's the worst? I'm going to lose a couple plants. I'll just regrow them. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and do, now, this is medical marijuana, and I just take all the seeds that I get from anything I buy at the dispensary, and I put them in one little container and keep them. And then all you have to do is just plant them. And then once they grow up to like a seedling size, about 2 weeks into it, you can tell if they're going to do good or bad. So then you can kind of weed out the ones that aren't very good versus the ones that are good. And that's kind of like what we did with the jalapenos too. So these were the 4, he wanted 4 total plants. So these were the 4 that turned out the best. And that's why we kept them. So now we're going to go ahead and put a seed one seed per pot in each row. And then this one we're going to do tomatoes because I want to show you guys how similar it is to grow tomatoes and marijuana. Now, the yellow peppers, we can do the same thing with the jalapenos if we want to see how similar they are. But they're really, honestly, not as similar as you would think. Yeah, they're the same thing. They're peppers. But these ones are hot. And these ones are not. So they grow a little different. They look a little different. Obviously, these ones are going to be green and they're early jalapenos. So they'll turn red when they're very, very, very ripe. And then these ones will be yellow, obviously, with no heat. So let's go ahead and get our seeds in the first row. I'm just going to dump them in my hand here and pick them out and plop them in as we go. Let's see if I can get my phone set right here. Just drop one in each hole. And like I said, these ones are the medical marijuana. Now, I have found seeds like this. It's kind of hard to see. They have like brown striping on them. They seem to grow the best. Versus, like, this seed probably will not grow. I don't know exactly where it came from, but it probably didn't look like that when I put it in there. That will not grow, though. It's just a white, and you can tell it's hollow and all that. Okay, go ahead and put 2 more in. And the last one. And then we'll put the rest of these seeds in my hand back in the container so that way we have them in case these don't grow or when we want to grow next season. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and get the tomato seeds out. And then we will plant those and we will finish up by transplanting the biggest jalapeno. Let me see if I can find my tomato seeds. I just keep them in the plastic Ziploc bag. I've got all kinds from last year. Okay, I do like these Very Morse organic seeds a lot. I don't really have a problem with them growing ever. Their seeds I've had trouble. And tomatoes really aren't that hard to grow compared to some other things. There's tomato seeds. We're just going to put 1 in each pot. So, on the back of the seeds, you'll see it says to put 2 to 3 seeds per hole. So these are our holes, and the reason I don't like doing that, I know they say do it in case the one seed doesn't grow, then the other 2 have a chance, and then once they grow a certain size, you can pretty much pick one out, I guess, that you want to keep. And then you can, I just spilled all those tomato seeds. You can pick the one you want to keep, I guess, out of the 2 that come up in one of these holes. And the problem I have with it is the fact that they create roots. And once you make too many roots in one pot, it's going to strangle every plant in there. And so then the plant that wins isn't going to have enough room to grow its roots and it'll die too. So to me, it's like asking to kill your plants. Now, if you want to do that, more power to you. Just make sure that you replant them in a bigger pot with loose dirt sooner rather than later. Okay? And that will help you out with that. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to cover these with the dry dirt that I have left over. And you just want to put just a covering over them. You don't necessarily have to fill the whole entire little pot up, but just make sure that you cover them enough that you can't see them. And like I said, it don't have to be perfect. It don't have to be the same amount in each pot. It just has to be enough to cover that. And see, with these, all these pots, they're Jiffy biodegradable pots is what they are. Every single one of them. The square ones, the circle ones, the big ones. Now, you can plant them in the ground, and supposedly the roots will grow through the pot into the ground, and everything's fine and dandy, and the pot will disintegrate. It's biodegradable, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. To me, it hinders the root growth because they have to take so much more energy to push through that pot because they do break down, don't get me wrong. And they do get kind of like flimsy, and like if I put